Hi everyone, I'm Russ from Sparx Hockey, and we're here for another episode of The Edge. This is our final installment in our walk back down memory lane on what it took to bring the Sparx Sharpener to market. In our last episode, we introduced this product right here, this prototype. This was our first iteration of the Sparx Sharpener after we had figured out what the geometry was going to be and where all the sensors were going to be, whether or not we had a window, that we had scoops. This was our first iteration of the prototype. And from here, we now knew we had a product, it worked, it looked great. We wanted to go do a Kickstarter. We wanted to do the Kickstarter to prove that we had a market that was beyond just the 15 of us that were hockey playing enthusiasts here in the Boston area that loved the idea of this sharpener. And so over the course of what was probably half a year, we went from this design to a final design of the product. And you can kind of see one of the first things that happened is we removed this external mounted control panel and we incorporated it right into the housing of the machine. We had changed up the design of these, what we call scoops internally, or slot covers. We changed those up to be a lot sleeker and not have external buttons that are needed to actuate them. We changed the design of the doors that make contact with the skate. There were a lot of iterations made in the design from here to here for usability, for durability. You can actually see in this version, again, 3D printing was a very big thing for us, and it actually made it possible to make this product. And so all of these parts are all 3D printed, and you can actually see there's a lot of texture in these parts from the 3D printing process. They're not molded as most products are. So they're either 3D printed, or in the case of this part here, this is machined. Another part that's really amazing that it was machined is the tray. And so we had gone from an SLA tray in a previous version to a fully machined tray. And this is, you can imagine, a pain to machine. This is only 1.5 millimeters thick, and it's machined out of a solid piece of plastic. All of the switches and interfaces with the user are here. We still don't have extrusions. These are all machined metal aluminum pieces that have the carriage and the rails to move the grinding wheel back and forth. We are now on to, again, still cast urethane parts for some of these bigger components. And at this point, we're now ready for Let's Play Hockey. So we went and built 6 of these for the event at a cost of $15,000 per prototype. Many of the parts in the prototypes were hand-painted, machined. Pieces like this are very, very expensive to machine. And so at $15,000 per prototype, we set out to Minnesota in 2015. And we went and parked ourselves about 10 feet away from the Bauer booth, where tens of thousands of people had seen for the first time the Sparx Sharpener. We sharpened hundreds of pairs of skates, and we actually blew out our Kickstarter event. We sold on the order of 300 Sparx Sharpeners in about a month's time. And from there, we knew we had a market. And so we could then, which is funny now to think about it, because all it was a prototype at the time, we can now figure out, well, how are we going to build thousands and thousands and thousands of these? And so that's what takes us to this next design here. And this was the first manufactured skate sharpener by Sparx Hockey. You can see in this version that none of the plastic parts are textured. These are all still raw, first shots off the tool. They still have the shot stickers on them telling us which cavity and which number part they were. You can see we haven't even silk screened on the Sparx logo into the metal, and there's still some tweaks that need to be made to the design. So you can hear that parts aren't fitting perfectly, and from this point forward, there were just a few tweaks required to get us into mass production. So you can also see some of the evolution here. We didn't have the indicator lights on the scoops, and at a certain point, these indicator lights wound up on the scoops. We also have the nice tactile silicone covers on the end caps for the product. We also incorporated the full vacuum dust collection system in the product. And we went to, a part, from SLA to machine to a vacuum formed tray. So this was that evolution as well, going from hundreds of dollars to hundreds of dollars to very, very low cost vacuum form trays as we got closer to mass production. This one also has no access anymore to the electronics. The electronics are buried in the product, whereas as we were going along, we always had to have access to the electronics to tweak and tune and refine the product. So this was the first fully encased product that we could both begin selling and then also bring to our regulatory agencies for safety testing and make sure all our safety testing was complete. So with that, are there any questions from the team?
Yeah, I do have a question. So when you look at that earliest model with the keypad on top, and you get over to the latest model, at least the one that went first manufactured, the changes are obviously they get more and more subtle. I'll trigger your memory a little bit because I remember. So you decided to have a removable handle. We went from just having the filter under the tray to having it enclosed in a case. Talk about that could go on forever. So talk about the process of like all these little improvements and when you finally were like, we're going to manufacturing.
Absolutely. And for anybody who's ever studied engineering, like your changes become more expensive and more costly the further you get down the line. And that has never been truer than in this product development process. In the beginning, it's very easy to move things around. But once there's close to $1 million in tooling to build this product. So once you have all that tooling and it's large steel components that are used to shoot plastic into, the tiniest little changes in this tooling take forever. So I think one of our hardest lessons, and a lot of Kickstarter campaigns fall victim to this, is you're here when you launch your Kickstarter and you think you're only a couple months away, but as you try to make it mass producible, all of these tiny little last mile changes in the marathon bringing a product to market take forever. So as you pointed out, moving this, we really tried to front end load all those changes and have them happen before we made this leap. But even when we got here, there was tiny little changes that are changes to the tooling that makes this metal chassis at the bottom of the Sparx machine. And that change is not easy to make. Does that answer the question in terms of how difficult they are and how they come about?
Yeah, and also just, I don't know if there's an answer to the question, but just sort of acknowledging the fact that, those tweaks could probably go on and on and on and on. And at some point you just have to say,
exactly,
we're going to manufacture this thing.
Exactly. And, over-engineered products are also things that you try to avoid. You don't want to put too many features because every single feature that you add becomes its own little engineering problem to fix. And I will say another interesting thing about the Sparx Sharpener and something that we didn't anticipate at the beginning was every single component on this product had to be redesigned. There was never a layup. There was never something that we're like, oh, this is super easy. We'll just add a screw here, and then that's how that's going to work. Like that screw failed at some point in the iteration process. We realized that screw needed to be redesigned, and that's why this took years to make this progression. There's probably half a year here, and there's a whole entire year in our lives that went from taking what appears to be a fully functional Sparx sharpener that works to just making it mass producible. There's an entire year and dozens of people and north of $1 million in tooling to go from this step to this step, and all of the changes and the dozens of people involved to make those changes. So it's an arduous process, and but in the end, you get a product that everyone seems to love and is reliable, and it solves a major pain point for our customers. So with that, thanks again. That was the last installment. You've seen us go from the various earliest concepts to where we identify the unmet need in skate sharpening all the way out to our mass-produced Sparx Sharpener. I hope that was helpful. Please do write in if you have any questions about the process, if you're thinking about embarking on a process of your own. We'd be glad to share some of our experiences at sparxhockey.com, and we'll talk to you next week.